Legendary's MonsterVerse is about to get its third and most colossal entry yet with Godzilla King of the Monsters. The lore for these films goes back decades, so if you need a refresher on 2014's Godzilla and 2017's Kong Skull Island, here's a quick recap in 5 minutes, mostly. Okay, so in 1944, during World War II, American pilot Hank Marlowe is shot down over a remote island in the South Pacific. After parachuting onto that island, it doesn't take long for him to encounter its alpha inhabitant, a giant ape we know as King Kong. Marlowe spends the next nearly 30 years stranded on the island. But he wasn't the only one made aware of beasts of unusual size living in remote parts of the planet. World War II's Pacific Theater produced several eyewitness accounts of a giant lizard that walked upright. In 1946, several of the Earth's governments and scientists created a secret organization called Monarch to locate and study these massive, unidentified terrestrial organisms, or MUTOs. The fabled giant lizard was dubbed Godzilla. In 1954, Monarch and the United States military attempted to destroy Godzilla with a nuclear bomb in Bikini Atoll, an operation passed off as a test to the public. Shots of this attempt are seen in the opening credits of Godzilla 2014. Jump to 1973. US government agent Bill Randa is planning an expedition to map the island Marlowe landed on 30 years earlier. He hires a team of soldiers fresh from Vietnam led by Colonel Packard, a skilled tracker named James Conrad, and a photographer named Mason Weaver. Weaver is convinced the government is hiding its real intent of the operation, and she is exactly right. Upon arriving at Skull Island, they are immediately attacked by the same giant ape from 1944. Packard would like some answers as to why half his men were just wiped out by a 100-foot-tall gorilla. Randa reveals he is actually part of Monarch, and the expedition's real purpose is to prove the existence of MUTOs. With the expedition team separated, Conrad's group encounters the local natives, who have taken in Marlowe, the pilot who landed there 30 years earlier. He explains the ape is Kong and is worshipped as a deity for protecting the natives from giant subterranean lizard monsters named skullcrawlers.
Never said that name out loud before. It sounds stupid now that I say. You call him whatever you want.
Conrad and friends regroup with the others, and Randa is eaten by a crawler. It turns out that Kong is a pretty nice ape when you're not threatening his island, but Colonel Packard wants to kill him. Kong gets him first, and then has to deal with a massive skullcrawler. The surviving humans help Kong defeat the monster and are rescued off the island at their rendezvous point. But after their rescue, Conrad and Weaver are detained and questioned by Monarch. It is revealed to them that Kong isn't the only known MUTO in existence. They are shown cave paintings depicting Godzilla and the monsters we know to be Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah. Time jump to 1999. Monarch scientist Ishiro Serizawa and his assistant are sent to a collapsed mine in the Philippines where a giant skeleton has been unearthed. They also find 2 giant spores, one of which seems to have recently hatched, with the contents fleeing into the ocean. Whatever it was made its way across the Philippine Sea to a nuclear power plant in Japan, where supervisor Joe Brody notices unusual seismic activity. Never a good sign. He sends his wife to investigate. A tremor causes a serious radiation breach, Joe has to watch his wife die, and the plant collapses. Time jump again to 2014, the year of our Godzilla. Joe and his late wife's son Ford is in the Navy. He gets a call from Japan explaining his dad has been arrested for trespassing in the quarantined area surrounding his old workplace, so Ford hops on a plane. Joe is obsessed with learning what caused the meltdown that killed his wife and is sure there is some kind of cover-up. He convinces Ford to help him collect data in the quarantine zone, but they are discovered and taken into custody and held at the ruined plant. There they discover the government has been hiding some sort of giant cocoon that has been feeding off the reactors for the past 15 years. It's ready to hatch, and a huge winged monster emerges, lethally injuring Joe in the process. Ford is taken to the USS Saratoga along with those 2 Monarch scientists from the Philippines. He tells them his now late father was monitoring echolocation signals emanating from the quarantine zone, and they surmise the flying MUTO must have been communicating with something else out there. Meanwhile, the MUTO fishes a Russian submarine out of the ocean, drops it in Hawaii, and feasts on its nuclear material. Godzilla finally makes his first appearance in the modern Hollywood monsterverse and briefly battles the MUTO. Serizawa guesses the MUTO was likely communicating with another of its own kind, like maybe that other spore from the Philippines. It is now being stored in Nevada. Unfortunately, it's already hatched, producing an even bigger MUTO. Our scientists come to the conclusion the monsters are male and female looking to get it on. A plan is hatched to lure the MUTOs out to the open ocean using a bunch of nuclear warheads, since they seem to love the stuff. Ford is part of the team transporting the warheads by train, but the female monster shows up and eats most of them. Ford airlifts the last warhead to San Francisco, but the male MUTO snatches it and takes it to the female, who builds a nest around it. Then Godzilla shows up, and he's had just about enough of this MUTO bullshit. While the monsters fight it out, Ford and a strike team do a really cool halo jump into the city to retrieve the final warhead. They get it onto a boat for disposal at sea. Ford blows up the MUTO nest, and Godzilla kills both monsters in an incredible mic drop moment. After a short rest, Godzilla disappears back into the ocean and is hailed as the savior of the city and king of the monsters. That's right, Godzilla's a good guy in this story, and he'll be back to save the world from more giant kaiju and Godzilla King of the Monsters. To prepare, watch the final trailer, and watch our top 10 Japanese movie monsters. And for all things kaiju, stay tuned to IGN.